Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to Skeptics in the Pub Online. My name is Gerald. I'm involved in Skeptics in the Pub in Cologne, Germany, and I'm delighted so many of you have joined us tonight. In case you haven't encountered us before, let me introduce Skeptics in the Pub. We used to meet in various pubs around the UK and further out, like here in Cologne, to listen to talks about science, rationalism, and good thinking while sipping a beverage of our choice. But that all had to stop in March 2020 when COVID hit. So we put our heads together and started these online talks, which quickly grew into a lovely community with our own Discord server and various channels on social media. If you want more details, watch out for our chat moderators providing the link repeatedly throughout the evening. The moderators will also provide the required links for either buying some of our merchandise or how to donate some money if you think that what we do is worth supporting. As always, tonight's event will be following the usual ceremony. We will have the talk, followed by a 15-minute break for refreshments and comfort breaks, and we will close the evening out with a Q&A with our speaker. If you want to ask a question for the Q&A, please go to sitp.online/ask, where you will be able to throw your questions into the hat or to upvote questions that you like. You do not need an account to do so, but if you add your name to the optional field, at least we can read out who asked the questions. And funny aliases are always welcome too. About tonight. We will have a talk about a grassroots skepticism tool that you think that might be used much more. Wikipedia. I mean, it is kind of the platform of fact-checking in a large scale, but it's not used as much in skepticism as it might be. So say some, others say it's used enough, but let's have a look at it, why the situation is as it is. We looked for someone on this side of the Atlantic to talk about this and give us a skeptical perspective. And fortunately, we found somebody who fits that bill. Tonight, we'll be hearing from Annika Harrison. Most likely, many of you will know her as the co-host of the aptly named ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast. By profession, she's a teacher of English and history at a comprehensive school here in Germany. But after hours, when she puts on her vigilante costume, she writes for the Skeptical Inquirer. And here comes the important part. She joined Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia in 2017 and enjoys recording audio introductions to provide more richness to the pages concerning skepticism. There's one subject I have to approach right now. We all know you love your pets, but I have to disappoint you. There will be no pets tonight. But Annika has got a cute little daughter. And if you ask me, baby cheek, chubby cheeks, little stubby fingers, and this lovely baby smile are quite heartwarming. So I really hope we might catch a glimpse of Annika's adorable husband tonight. Or of her daughter if he is busy. So let's get started. Please put your hands together in the chat for Annika Harrison.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, so let's just jump in, I would say. And today I prepared the presentation for you, the Woes and Woes of Wikipedia. And I think Gerald did a very good job to introduce me. There's not really much I can add. So yeah, I will tell you everything I know about Wikipedia and everything I can tell you, but I want to give you a word of caution, because the following presentation and everything I say here is my opinion. And I'm not paid by GSRW, Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia, or Wikipedia itself. For this presentation, be skeptical, but also stay skeptical with everything. So, that's never a bad idea, right? And yeah, just keep in mind that I, as a human, I am, of course, biased. So I will tell you that Wikipedia is cool, but stay skeptical about that. So how to trust Wikipedia and how does it impact the world? If you see this map, do you have any idea how this map that was uploaded on Wikipedia could impact the world? So yeah, I will come to that later. You just have a thought about that. In my presentation today, in my talk, I want to tell you about my idea of Wikipedia. So what is Wikipedia? Can we trust it? Can we work with it? And if so, how? Are there any real world impacts? And is there anything we as skeptics can do? Why is it important that what we're doing? And what's happening at all? So let's come to what is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a non-profit organization, but it's also an online encyclopedia. So you will see it's pretty much both. The organization is financed by Wikimedia Foundation. That means there will be no ads, and that it's free. It's as I said, a free portal. It's interactive. And it's created by its users, which is a risk and a benefit. More about that later. And because it's created by its users, it is very interactive, and it covers a vast area of knowledge. The interlinked areas are really interesting and very special for are the benefit of an online encyclopedia, because it will, for example, if I look up skeptics in the pub, I can find out a lot of things about skeptics in the pub, and then I can also find out who is doing that. I might get to GWUP. I might from then go to SkepCon in Germany. I can find out a lot of things just by going to one page, and yeah, that's a very cool thing, if you ask me. Wikipedia was founded 2001, and then you also have Wikimedia Commons. That's something that Gerald also mentioned in the introduction. And Wikimedia Commons creates content for Wikipedia articles, and they also archive these contents. So what are we talking about? Which kind of content? We're talking about photos, videos, audio recordings, the aforementioned map, and more. And this is really important because it improves Wikipedia articles significantly and really shows the strength of what we're doing. Because it has a very important conservation effect. We have a lot of videos of James Randi on Wikipedia, and even my daughter that was only born end of last year, she will know what James Randi sounded like because we have these videos and audio recordings. And if we wouldn't have had that, we would have someone would have had a video, but could I access it? Maybe not. So that's why I think Wikimedia Commons is also really important and is good for Wikipedia. And now you might also want to know, why is it called Wikipedia? Wiki is Hawaiian for quick. So yeah, I would say it's pretty aptly named a quick encyclopedia where I can quickly find out cool things and interesting and important things. Now we should find out, can we trust Wikipedia? And if so, why? And wait a second. So there you go. Sorry. So how does Wikipedia build trust? And with that, I just listed several interesting and important mechanisms. And these are robots, the talk page or the discussion page, access rights, peer review, always important, sources and evidence, and work ethics of Wikipedia editors. So we start with bots, like this little cute housekeeping robot. And bots are little programs that sniff out problems on Wikipedia and will clean up or automatically put tags into an article. And they are widely used to battle vandalism. So if you're annoyed by someone and you just put in 1,000 exclamation marks in their Wikipedia page, the bots will hopefully pick it up and they will just automatically delete it. So they are pretty much the caretakers of the whole thing. They're really cool. They're very quick because they're robots. But if a page is not well trafficked, so that means if a page it doesn't get many hits, then it can sometimes happen that the bots don't pick it up because they just don't notice it as it's not accessed often enough. So normally they're really good, but they also have sometimes their drawbacks. Then we come to the talk page. In my opinion, that's a very important part of the whole Wikipedia experience. And I marked it here with a red circle and arrow. And like the talk page is also accessible. There you can also see that what is done on Wikipedia is transparent. So if we would go, for example, to Havana syndrome, then you would see that Havana syndrome is, I quote, a set of medical symptoms that includes ringing in the ears, fatigue, and dizziness. But you could also see how did it get to that stage by clicking the talk link. And this page has recently been subject of a lot of discussions. It was pretty much esoteric editors against GSOW editors or skeptical editors. And I'll talk a tiny bit about that, but if you want to know more about it, you should definitely ask Susan Gerbic, founder of GSOW, the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia, or Rob Palmer, the well-known skeptic, because they were both very, very active in that discussion. Yeah, and this is the talk page that you can see here, and you can see several discussions. The talk page of Havana syndrome is actually so long that I could only get you like a tiny screen cap here. It was pretty much a Wikipedia page in itself. And it's important to note it's not a forum. We're discussing the article at hand here. And with these arrows, also with the highlighted parts that you can see that it enables us to find consensus among our authors and also clarify things. Because here the user Diogene says the medical team that examined the affected diplomats and so on. Why is that? What was that? And then the other editor replies, sorry, I was confused that there are two articles, both in New York Times. So it's like a bit of a quality control, but it also enables us to find consensus. The discussion there is very nuanced. I saw that there were sometimes really discussing about the use of one specific word, for example, victim, where they said like, no, they weren't victims. Yes, they were. And you can find that there can be heated discussions, and at times admins also have to intervene there. But all in all, the talk page is a very important tool to keep the quality up and to keep to find a consensus of the majority of people, how they want this, and how the status quo of science should be on that page. Then we come to the access rights. And this is very important in regards of vandalism or with very hot topics like homeopathy, vaccinations, COVID-19, 5G, all of skeptical topics, you name it. And that means some pages can only be edited by admins or higher ranking editors, and some pages can't be edited at all. They are frozen and you can't do anything with it, or it's very hard to do so. And of course, I want to show you what that looks like with a homeopathy. So you can see that you not only have to be a registered user, so not everyone can do it with their phone, but you also have to have to be an established user. So you have to have a higher rank. And that is, of course, because there were so-called edit wars around Wikipedia, where, people were like, no, homeopathy is medicine. No, it's not. And and that's where Wikipedia intervened and said, no, we freeze it at that, and you can only edit it if you have significant proof and if you're also established. And because it encountered, and I quote from the talk page, endless vandalism. And it's important for us to know that Wikipedia wants to portray and foster scientific consensus and the status quo of science. So they will eventually be on our side, on the side of skeptical and critical thinking. So to show you that they really seem to be on our side, I prepared a quote for you, and this was given by Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, in 2014 about a petition where people wanted alternative medicine to say that it's like working and actual medicine. And sorry, that was a bit too quick. There you go. And he said, quote, "No, you have to be kidding me. Every single person who signed this petition needs to go back to check their premises and think harder about what it means to be honest, factual, truthful. What we won't do is pretend that the work of lunatic charlatans is the equivalent of true scientific discourse. It isn't." So there you can see that it definitely, they want to be on our side. Of course, there are still nuances, but eventually we can always apply to critical thinking in that regard. Then we come to another important mechanism, and that is peer review. It's, for example, used on German Wikipedia. And here, every edit has to be unlocked by another user, usually an established user. So, for example, when I edited Natalie Gramm's page, who is a former homeopath and medical doctor. She's pretty well known in Germany, at least. And when I wanted to edit her page, it has to be confirmed first. So nobody can just edit and upload it. So that, of course, stops vandalism immediately. But it can also mean that nice content might be blocked if you maybe don't present it in the right form because you're a newbie. So that's the stabilizing wheels for newbies. But it can also be a bit sad if you, for example, have a really nice photo and people don't agree with the photo because they're like, no, that's not encyclopedic. Now others are like, that's the definition, like define encyclopedic for a photo. So it can block nice things, but it eventually will lead to quality control. And if you have the better arguments, you will win with that. So that's why the peer review is very important. And essentially, peer review is just that. And that is this tweet that I found that is, just very nice and very nicely sums up. You ever think about the fact that Wikipedia built the modern Library of Alexandria using nothing but nerds' need to correct each other? And I found that pretty true. I like correcting people. And not saying that everyone is like that, but that's why peer review is working so well. And now I, of course, want to tell you that Wikipedia is a skeptic's dream because they actually demand evidence. They want evidence. They want all the sources, and the more you have, all the better. But be careful that you're actually having good quality. Don't take tabloid newspapers. Or if you do, then take several to show what it is. And this is also to document where you have things from. So I could technically write a Wikipedia page for my pet, but that I don't have. But it wouldn't be notable for Wikipedia, meaning it wouldn't be relevant. And because my pet, except for questions asked in the chat, my pet is not of public interest. I can't find it on Google. And that means, it has to be notable. It has to have a lot of sources. And because I want to prove everything, every fact I mention. So, I need to prove everything. It's almost, you can think of it like an academic paper. So like, obviously, if I know that someone identifies as a woman, I don't have to say she's a woman, because that's a well-known fact if the person identifies as a woman. But there are other things that I do have to prove. Like, for example, with let's say take Natalie Grams again. I have to prove if I want to say she was born there and there, I have to prove or give a source to like why I know that. I can't imagine and just create things. And a lot of different sources can also balance an article, so it can make it less biased. And that's also what we want, right? And it's there are even stricter rules for living people, because Wikipedia doesn't want to be liable. Wikipedia doesn't want to influence people's chances on the job market, pretty much. But they also want to keep controversies on Wikipedia. So they don't want things to be like swept under the rug, but it has to be proven well. So that's why the sources are so important. And there are important societal rules for Wikipedia, important morals, so to say. Of course, you can, in any community, you can find black sheep. You know exactly who I mean at times. Like, I think all of you probably can think of a black sheep in one community, or even a classroom or whatever. That doesn't mean that they don't do good work. It just means some will do exactly the things that I'm mentioning that we don't want to do. Yes. But what's important is that editors should be unpaid. So don't receive money for polishing up a Wikipedia page by an important scientist or an important celebrity. And they also shouldn't have a personal or strong personal connection to the subject, if it's a person or if it's an organization. So to give you an example, I could write the Wikipedia article of Holm Hümmler, who is a German physicist, author, and skeptic, because like, we're friends, but it's not like he's family also. But I shouldn't write about the ESP, the European Skeptics Podcast, on Wikipedia, because for the last year I've been literally part of it, so I shouldn't write about that. I will be biased. That also speaks to the no opinions rule that they have. Don't put your opinions on Wikipedia. It's not your diary. No matter how much I like QED, I can't say, oh, QED is the best. Go to Manchester next October. No, I can't do that, because it's not encyclopedic. It's not my opinion. Then something that's also wanted for Wikipedia is that it's very democratic. So academic titles aren't mentioned explicitly. You won't find doctor, unless it's like their celebrity name, like Dr. Phil, for example. But if you won't find the academic title. You will find something like, she wrote her PhD about reindeers, but you won't find Dr. Grams. who didn't write her PhD about reindeers, just to say that. And hard to believe, Wikipedia editors don't want to rule the world. Most editors, at least. Most editors are really nice, altruistic people, don't want to rule the world, but make it a better place by creating articles. And now you might ask, like, hey, Annika, why is it important at all? Like, why do you care? Like, write articles or not? Who am I to care? Well, I can give you an example. This is what I get on a first glance if I Google Black Self. And I can see literally with my first glance, Black Self, also known by the brand name Cansema, is pseudoscientific alternative cancer treatment. So that's what I see. Now, the next screenshot will tell you what you would see if there is no Wikipedia article. And that is this. Here you go. Buy Black Self, €14 in this shop, €57 in this shop. Thank you. So yeah, this is exactly the danger of not having Wikipedia pages, and this is exactly the reason why we need this. So to put it in a nutshell, Wikipedia makes use of swarm intelligence in an unprecedented way. So it bundles the knowledge of humankind into this wonderful collection of everything. But everyone can contribute. So you will have benefits of that, because if I'm a highly qualified specialist of this one stone from Turkey, then I will be able to write very, very good Wikipedia articles about this special stone. But everyone can contribute. So it can also be someone that is like, I want to sell them this and that scam. So maybe I can put it in. And if it's if it's a page that is not very well accessed and not very popular, it might not be picked up immediately. And as we see, Wikipedia is pretty much the first thing people go to get informed. And that's why it is important what we do there. Yeah, peer review and notability are very important parts of quality control there, but they can also oppress minorities even more. That means this is also part of the everyone can contribute. You want everyone to to contribute, and not only majority people, if you know what I mean, because that means that there will not be enough representation. Alternatives to Wikipedia would be lexical websites or lexical books, the good old books that we know. Those are edited by publishing houses, though. There will be less authors, less control mechanisms. And if you think about a page that has been edited by a lot of people, that has been edited and edited again and is pretty much sharpened to a diamond, if you know what I mean, then it will have very, very high quality. It will even be on a standard of a scientific paper, because scientific papers are peer-reviewed, but maybe by 3 authors, not by 15, 20, 100. So it has a wonderful potential. And this wonderful cake will taste even better if everyone cuts off a piece of it, so everyone can contribute. As I said before. So, but now I want to tell you something about the real world impact. And now we come back to the map that I showed you in the beginning. And this is a map created by Leon Korteweg for the 80 Years' War in the Netherlands. And Leon Korteweg is one of the editors of the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia. He's a Dutch editor, particularly interested in history. And imagine his surprise one time when he opened this history atlas and found his own map in there. So you can see that Wikipedia does have a big influence on, it pretty much goes full circle. People are educated, they create a map, and then this map makes it to a book that educates other people. And Leon knows for sure that that this is his map because it A, has striking similarities, and B, they even copied a tiny mistake he made. So you can see this is pretty much one of my most favorite examples of the impact that Wikipedia can have on the real life offline. Other examples I have is that photos taken by Wikipedia editors are often used outside of Wikipedia in newspaper articles, in blog entries. So, for example, I took a photo of German philosopher and author and skeptic Nikhil Mukherjee, and this photo was used on several blog entries. Then some of the audience might have heard about that. There was a huge media outcry about Scott's Wikipedia because there was a US teenager and he wrote a big chunk of Scott's Wikipedia without actually speaking the language. And you can see that the control mechanisms that I mentioned before definitely didn't work here. That's a bit of a sad example. Good example, very, very heartwarming example that I found is that a trans member of a secluded community read about trans identities on Wikipedia. And she said, I quote, "Literally the first thing that I Googled in Hebrew was whether a boy could turn into a girl. And from there, I found a Wikipedia page in Hebrew that's talking about trans people that redirected me to online forums in Hebrew from the trans community. And that is how I started learning about it." So it's like almost goosebump raising for me that reading Wikipedia articles was so eye-opening and life-changing for her. As I mentioned before, more editors are dearly needed because the more people from marginalized communities contribute, the better they are represented. And this is another real-life example of pretty much real-life influencing Wikipedia in a way. Like, as we all know, if we want to stop the spinning wheel of discrimination, we have to walk actively against it. And that's also true for Wikipedia. And that's why Wikipedia needs everyone who can contribute. But who can actually contribute and how can you contribute? And that's, of course, what I want to tell you now. So you can make the internet less sexist and follow the project Women in Red, for example. They create Wikipedia pages for women who are underrepresented for notability reasons at times. This is one of the examples of discrimination I already talked about. And they're called Women in Red because links that are linked on Wikipedia, but they don't have a page behind them, are presented in red on Wikipedia. And this project, they noticed that there are several women or several pages that are red, and they want to change that. They want to have women not in red but in blue as a clickable link, as a page that you can actually see. And they did write a lot of pages for women already. And of course, not only women, every other person, every other gender or non-gender, we need pages, we need representation on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is ours, everyone's. Then you can also improve media and create content for sites around your local area, for example, with a Wikipedia special nearby. That is something that can, with a smartphone, you can use your GPS coordinates, and then it can tell you, oh, you're close to this and that monument. We don't have a photo for that yet. Don't you want to take a photo? And that would be really cool, obviously. And it would mean that, you can take a walk around the house, outside of your house, and take a photo or a panorama shot. You can, if you have time, also create articles or improve articles in your spare time. And you can also create and upload content on Wikimedia Commons. And that's the thing I mentioned before. You can take photos of important people, of monuments, of books, of maps. You can record people. For example, I recorded Natalie Grams. The English audio of Natalie Grams is by me, for example. I know that a lot of my friends from the Guerrilla Skeptics also recorded a lot of, a big number of people. And this just enriches and improves the Wikipedia article significantly because, as I said before, like if I go on James Randi's page, I will know what he sounded like. And this is also very, very good. For example, there's this German historian called Alida Assmann, and I never knew how to pronounce her name. And then I went to a public talk she was giving, her public speech, and asked her if I could just record her audio. And there, obviously, she pronounced her own name correctly. And now I know how to pronounce her. So this is also very important and very good. And of course, the most wonderful thing you can do is do what I did and join the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia. My dear friends, they were founded by Susan Gerbic in 2010, and it's a grassroots organization founded, as I said, in 2010. And here you can find the Skeptical Activism on Wikipedia. So it will be, it's one of the most important things in skepticism and in skeptical activism you can do, because Wikipedia is the first thing you go to and your neighbor goes to. And I know if I want to know something, if someone tells me, oh yeah, this and that child has this and that sickness, the first thing I do is Google. And the second thing I do is click on the Wikipedia link it gives me. So it is important. And only if we have articles about all the pseudoscience and all the scam that is going around, only then people can be informed and can make informed choices. So it is one of the most important things we can do as skeptics. Susan Gerbic had this really cool idea to actually also train her editors. So we all go through an extensive training to make really good edits, and that's why Wikipedia also likes us, because we make good pages. We did a lot of pages. Susan actually has a stat badger, we call it, a page that just collects the hits, and they just celebrated their 100,000th edit. Hit. I mean, so yeah, that's so wonderful and it's so important. And what I, of course, also want to mention is that they have a very cool logo. I mean, look at it. It's a gorilla battling pseudoscience. How cool is that? Yeah. But something I don't want to leave unmentioned is that Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia were very important for friends of mine who would have never met without Wikipedia. They found each other and found love through Wikipedia. And I obviously wouldn't be here talking to you about Wikipedia if I wouldn't have joined the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia in 2017. So that's pretty much it. I would like to thank the secret cabal of the Guerrilla Skeptics for their suggestions that I worked into the presentation. I would like to thank Udo Endrescheid, who fact-checked this, because this presentation, of course, is peer-reviewed. And I would also like to thank my husband, Scotty, because he's taken care of our sick daughter right now, who is in the other room and is battling other fronts, so to say. So, we will now, I think, take a little break, and then I'll be there for your questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Annika. That was quite good and really fascinating. As Annika already mentioned, we will now have a short break for drinks, drink disposal, dog walking, cat herding, anything else you need to do. Before we leave you, a short reminder. You can ask your questions at sitp.online/ask, where you can also see all questions that already have been put up, and you can vote for those that you like best. We will discuss the questions based on popularity as a rough guide. So I hope I'll see you all again after the break. I don't have an update yet on when we will meet again, but I think it should be about a few minutes to 8 o'clock in the UK. So just give us 15 minutes and we'll be back. In the meantime, ask those questions. Thank you. Hello, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for all the questions we've received so far. Please keep them coming, even though we are starting the Q&A next. Again, the link, sitp.online/ask. Also, I want to mention it now. After we're done today, we'll open the Logins Razor, our regular virtual pub on Zoom. So check our webpage to get the details and join us to have a chat, maybe a drink together. Good. Let's talk about the questions that you guys have given us. The first question that I see in the list is Igor. I noticed that, no, it's from Dave. Okay. I noticed that most of the good questions today, or the popular questions, are all from either Dave or Igor. So I'll try to make up other names to keep it more interesting. So Dave J, as we all call him, asks, is there a go-to example of malicious edits that wasn't caught for a long time?
Yeah, so it might not be malicious, but what didn't get caught for a long time was that the cupping page had something in the first sentence that said that cupping worked and was very old and very good. And cupping is this thing that we learned about in around 2016, when we saw all the Olympic athletics have all these cupping marks on their skin, and that wasn't picked up for a long time, but it got picked up and is now pretty much up to spec. Another thing that comes to mind is that someone added a nickname of an animal into an info box, and that actually got printed into a book before people caught it that this nickname was completely made up. So that's there are a few examples, but there are not plenty.
Good. Igor, or as we call him, Russian agent number 1, asks, are corporations trying to get their subtle or not so subtle ads into the wiki? Is there some special way to fight it, or is the regular moderation enough?
Yeah, of course, they're trying to do that. Like I even picked up a university doing that, like pretty much writing their own Wikipedia page of like, we're wonderful, come to us. Yes, because everybody knows how important Wikipedia is, and that it is the first thing that people go to. They are not completely they're not ads, they're not colorful, but they want to influence their Wikipedia articles. But as you can imagine, we don't want that to happen. It will get discovered. It can take some time, but it eventually will get discovered, and then these people, these editors who tried that, or who might also have been paid doing that, they will be banned, and the Wikipedia page will be frozen, so you can't edit it anymore.
It will be marked with a comment before it gets frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a second. Okay. Next question. Again from Igor. This time, we're not going to take that one yet. We'll leave that for later. Dave, British agent number one. Are there any topics that are completely banned on Wikipedia?
Not that I know of. Of course, we try to be democratic, and we don't want to insult people. But as long as it's on the scientific side, it's not banned. No, I can't really think of a topic now. Not really.
Good enough. Seller Keeper, sorry. I thank you very much, Seller Keeper, for asking a question and that you're not named Igor or Dave. So, how do you keep your confidence that truth will beat post-truth when the fundamental key to Wikipedia is a mix of numbers and persistence?
Yeah, it's a good question, I would say. But eventually, I think it's about who has the bigger stamina, who has the longer breath. And I will keep on fighting the good fight. And I know that all of the guerrilla skeptics will do that too. And that a lot of skeptics are doing that too. Because, of course, things are not ideal. But if we say, oh, there are vandals on Wikipedia, so we shouldn't do anything at all, then we can also just sit down and do nothing and don't talk about it. And we have to have the longer breath and be patient and still do our edits and do it. Yeah. Okay. Hope and be an optimistic.
I'll play devil's advocate here. I mean, you seem to be still convinced that good facts, good sources will win through at the end. There have been stories in the past about trying to impress people, trying to scare them. There has been cases of doxing in some discussions from what I've heard. How frequent is that? Is it a systemic problem or is it something that happens occasionally? How do you see that?
I would say it's probably occasional. It can happen, and especially with people of interest. Of course, I know several editors who don't use their actual name on Wikipedia because they're afraid that if they edit in the name of science, that there might be repercussions, and I can understand that. So it's not unheard of, but it's also not super regular in a way. So, okay. But it does exist.
Okay. Now we got a question from Nadia. Mm-hmm. Nadia asks, in my country, Wikipedia articles look somewhat less skeptical than the original ones. I guess she refers to English language ones. For example, homeopathy. Can the universal quality standards be ensured?
Yes, they can, but only as I said before, if you if you contribute. Wikipedia can only be what you put into it, and that means there are languages on Wikipedia that are not really often used. And that means there will be less articles and the articles will have a lower quality. So you can pretty much imagine that the English Wikipedia is of a very high standard because English is our lingua franca. Then Spanish is very good, for example. But if you go down and down and down, then there will be fewer and fewer pages. Also, something I want to add to the last question is, of course, if you, for example, dox an editor, you will get banned. There are things that will happen. It's just that sometimes if you're already doxed, then something already happened, But it's not that people can behave like the chainsaw in the forest and not get banned or get penalties for that.
Okay. You mentioned during your talk that the peer review is used a lot in German Wikipedia.
Mhm.
Is that because it is done slightly different in the English-speaking world, or is it just because your experience is more with German-speaking Wikipedia?
I'm very experienced with the German Wikipedia, yes. So I know that on the I think they just have slightly different principles. In German Wikipedia, they want to be very encyclopedic. So like I really can't even change. Let's say I can't even put in the new book by author and skeptic Lydia Benecke into her Wikipedia page without another person confirming it. Whereas I could put in Natalie Graham's family name because, like, when she got married, I could put a family name in the English version, just with a source to her homepage. So there are just slightly different principles, but it's also that English Wikipedia is so used to that they probably don't need this peer review that much. Or the confirming and editing and allowing things to be uploaded, they probably don't need that much because they are so highly frequented that it will get picked up.
Okay, good. Dave, English plumber number one, asked the question, should Wikipedia be allowed to be used as a reference for schoolwork?
Yeah. I mean, it depends. I would say if you want to teach media competence, if you have a younger person in school, a younger student, yeah, why not? Like, of course, like Wikipedia, I'm on the point that Wikipedia is reliable. Of course, if you say you're at a higher in higher education, then you can still use Wikipedia, but what you can do is scroll right down, go to the sources, and use the sources as your references.
Good point. Parrot Lady, welcome back, is asking the following question. If you can't write articles about topics you're personally involved in, won't that exclude a lot of experts? Or did I misunderstand what you said about that?
It's more a personal... yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I probably worded that a bit different, wrongly, or but just misunderstandingly. It's like if you're an expert, of course you can do that, but and at best, for example, if you're like a physicist and you say this and this molecule is A and another one is saying B, then at best it will both opinions will be in the Wikipedia article, and then you can just read that. That is, I think that would be the best outcome in that. I think what I meant is more that if you are a celebrity and you know that people will book you if you have a good Wikipedia page, but you actually committed a crime, then you, as the person who committed the crime, you're not allowed to delete the edit out of your Wikipedia page that you committed this crime. So it shouldn't be too biased if you're writing about yourself. So that means, like, if you're an expert of a field, you can write about your field. But if there's also a Wikipedia page about you, then you shouldn't write your own Wikipedia page.
Okay. Now, what if you have a popular science book about your subject? Can you use that as a source?
Yeah.
Or should you? Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay. But it might be smarter if you just ask someone else to edit it in, because you can do it. It's just not a nice tone. So like I could, for example, I could if I wanted to edit. Let's say I want to edit Natalie Graham's page again. I could link to my own article, my own interview I did with her with the Skeptical Inquirer. But it wouldn't just be a good tone in a way, but I can do that.
Okay.
That would be blowing my own horn, basically. So.
I see. That makes sense. Good. We've got a question from Anonymous. In the spirit of the evening, I assume that he is a Polish high school professor. And the question is, I've been editing Wikipedia for a long time, but found groups hard to get into. Aside from Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia, any tips on getting into groups or getting better at editing?
I would say, okay, they said apart from GSRW, I would say always try GSRW because they are nice. Of course, they have this extensive training, so that might be a roadblock for some people. But hey, we're nice. But if you say except for that, for example, there are often local groups that you can find on Wikipedia that sometimes you think they're hard to contact, but they're very lovely people in real life. So that could be something. And they also asked about how to get better, and that is either joining GSRW because Susan has a training program. But if you don't want to do that, which is totally up to you, then you can read Wikipedia articles about about editing Wikipedia. There are also several videos about it, and I think it mostly comes down to practice. Practice makes the winner, so to say. So practice, and just do your edits, and you will get better.
Next question is again from Dave. Let's call him the British wedding DJ number one. Is there a complaint mechanism of any kind for non-editors?
Yes, because also non-editors can also access the talk page. So you don't have to register as a formal editor to go to the talk page and say like, hey, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then editors will see that. A lot of people that wrote this article have this page under their alarm, so to say. So they will see if there's been an edit on the talk page. And then they will pounce on it and change it or work on it.
React. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So don't edit it yourself because you might accidentally vandalize something. Go to the talk page and
point them to the news source. Okay. Another question from Igor. Russian photograph number one. Does Wikipedia as a format evolve? Do you think it will involve things like embedded video, something interactive, or is the idea to not mess with perfection?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already seen it evolve a lot. In the beginning, when Wikipedia was still like a secret thing that you could use in high school, for me in my regard, so early 2000s, it was only text, and then pictures got in, and now it's pictures and audio recordings, and the info boxes are a relatively recent addition, where you can just see important facts just on the go, like in a very in very tiny amount of time. And it does evolve, and it will evolve even more. I know already of several pages that have videos that you just can click, technically and practically there are no borders if the majority takes the change with you.
Good. Next question from Dave, British submarine leader. Who makes the rules for Wikipedia?
I think it started with Jimmy Wales, but the foundation. But I think it's mostly the majority. What the majority what the majority agrees to. But it's of course also you have to stay within the law, obviously. let's say there would be a majority of people saying that homeopathy works, then there would still be rules covering that, because Wikipedia has this scientific direction or slight scientific leaning. But in the end, it's pretty much the consensus that makes the rules, which just I think they just established some rules, and for example the work ethics, because that's what works best.
I mean, as you've mentioned before, German Wikipedia tends to use this peer review much more than English Wikipedia. That seems to be something agreed by the German editors.
Yeah, exactly.
Group of German editors. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Next question is from, I guess it's pronounced Seber. What do you find most annoying about the Wikipedia process, and what would you change about it?
Most annoying is maybe I think, for example, in the German Wikipedia, I sometimes get the slight feeling that people think that an encyclopedia can't be entertaining, that it can only be dry in a way. Which means, for example, for the German Wikipedia, it will be much harder to put videos in, for example. So that's pretty much what I think. That can be annoying. What was the second part of the question? Sorry.
Would you change anything about it?
Yeah, I think that's what I would change. Because as a teacher, I know how important it is to not only educate and inform, but also entertain. Yeah.
Okay. Good. We've got another question from an anonymous user. This time, I think he's a Malawian taxi driver. How does Wikipedia handle controversial topics? Does it have a stance or remains impartial with respect to politics, etc.?
Yeah. So, as I said, we have this slight scientific leaning. Controversies are sometimes frozen if there are too many things going on. It is difficult because you want to be factual on Wikipedia, and if there's something like person A says this, person B says this, then you can pretty much only say it is reported that person A says this, person B says this, and you can then say like that's how it is. We can't say what actually happened, for example. So there are hot topics that are difficult to discuss. But the good thing about Wikipedia in that regard is that the talk pages will be transparent in that way, so that you can see, this edit has been made by this person. You can also go back to edit history, and you can see, this edit has been made there, and then you can see on the talk page, that's what they talked about, and that's why this edit has been made. So that can maybe help to clear the confusion of a controversy. But as I said, I think I said before, Wikipedia can only be as good as its users. So there will be discrimination because our society is discriminative.
Good. We've got another question from Anonymous. He or she asks, units of measure are a mess on Wikipedia. Are there any plans to ban all but SI units on any time soon? I guess SI units is the stuff that we are used to, meters and kilograms.
So Susan told me to say join GSOW and we will train you how to fix that. Apart from that, yes, that it is difficult. Like if the US, for example, decides to change their units of measure, then Wikipedia can change that. So it will of course be important to find a consensus in that regard and say we just only use that, we just don't use that, or we just put everything in. That will have to be worked upon.
Okay. Good. another anonymous question. If I don't have special research skills but can translate some stuff, can I just edit the wiki in my language to match the English one?
Yeah, that's something I do all the time, and what we in GSOW also do all the time. Of course, yes.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
It's still factual. It's just a different language.
Yeah, exactly.
So I forgot to mention before we started that we were trying to keep this question answer a little bit shorter than normally because, as you've mentioned before, your daughter has caught a fever and slightly ill, so we don't want you to keep any much longer.
Yeah.
Which takes us to our last question. Once again, it's from Igor, our top Russian special agent. And he asked the following question. Does the community have to fight swarms of government control bots from some unnamed countries that like to wreak havoc on the West? I guess he's talking about Tuvalu or Fiji Island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as far as I know, they don't. But what we sometimes see is, for example, one bot going through changing the date format, and then another bot going through changing it back. So
Okay.
that can sometimes happen. But as far as I know, not the big governmentally issued bots that have malicious intent in that regard, as far as we know. But as I said in the beginning, it's always good to stay skeptical and be on our guard, not trust blindly.
Good point. Good. Thank you very much for answering those questions.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Good. I've got a few announcements to make with regards to next time. We don't have the details buttoned down yet for next talk, but it will happen in 2 weeks' time. We haven't dotted all the T's and crossed all the I's yet, but I hope it will come together soon. And you will see updates either on our profile page, Facebook page, or on our website. So keep an eye on that. Again, we're opening the Logins Razor in a few minutes. Join us on our online pub. I want to remind everyone that even on Thursdays where we don't have a talk, we still open the Razor. So 8:30 p.m. UK time, every Thursday when there is no talk, we will open the pub. That's it. All that remains for me now is to actually thank my team of helpers in the background. Tonight we had Dave, who I scared for a moment when I lost my internet connection during the break. But he was a very good backup and purveyor of questions. And Matti and Igor were being the tech wizards that they are anyway, and handled that with professionalism. So thank you very much, guys. The biggest bang of the evening, thank you of the evening, obviously goes to you, Annika. So thanks for taking the time. Thanks for putting your daughter in your husband's arms and tell him to sort it out. We really
he did a great job.
must not have been easy, but we appreciate it a lot. And for everybody else, I wish you all a good rest of your evening. Have a good week. And as I always say at the end, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay skeptical. Good night.
Night.